Good morning, good morning, good morning, and happy Memorial Day! Yay! It's the first holiday of this summer season. I'm sorry about the really weird light. I don't know. It's looking kind of weird today. I had it much closer and then I realized, yeah, it's a filming thing, so when you're doing something face on and then kind of switching to your table, it makes it a little bit awkward. So I'm trying to do this as easy as humanly possible for you so that it's not all, wonky and I'm going to weird places. Anyway, today is the day that we are going to do this Japanese Side-Sewn Binding, which is, I think, one of the easiest bindings to do as far as putting together your own journals. I absolutely love it. There are a few steps, that you might find a little bit awkward the first time that you do them, but I promise you it's a very, very forgiving process, unlike some of the sewn bindings that, if you don't get them tight enough, they can be kind of loose and, and kind of wonky, which is okay if you're doing a lot of collage on your pages. That will usually fill that up over time. But for this summer season, for getting ready to be creative this summer, we're going to do this Japanese side-sewn binding. So I'm going to take you to my table, which is going to look like a mess at first. It does. Oh, okay. So I just realized I did that wrong. We're on the ceiling. Okay, so I'm going to have to move if I cut you guys off, I will be back. All right. Weird picture. Okay, so good morning, Karen. How are you? See, I was hoping that I could do this where I could see your comments and stuff along the way. Once I turn it down to my table, I'm not going to be able to see any comments, but I promise that when I finish, I will look in the comments, answer them. If I can, I don't have anybody here to kind of check that out for me. So it's just me and my book, girl. Okay, so now we're going to go down to the table. And I do need to kind of make sure that we're all in here. Okay, what do I have? Okay. Sorry, I just have to make sure that I'm getting everything in. And all right, I am. All right, I know it's a little bit awkward, but if I make sure that I'm in the screen here, I think you'll get it all. Okay. So, I have my book cover that I've decided to use, which is, and I'm hoping that this isn't a sideways thing for you. I'm thinking it might be, and I apologize for that. But my book cover that I'm going to use is 14.5 by approximately 11, give or take a few eighths there. And I have not cut this apart yet because I want to show you how to cut it apart if you want all of your edges to look finished. So we're going to start with that. But what I also have here is some silk ribbon. I haven't decided which color I'm going to use, so I have some silk ribbon and I have some chiffon that I have made. Maybe I'll do a tutorial if you've never seen that done before. You just get blouses and skirts and various things from a thrift shop, and you can create your own balls of silk yarn. And that's what I'm going to use for the binding. So I have that. I have a needle that is here somewhere in my disaster. Excuse me, it's the morning. I have 2 pieces of linen that I want to use as the binding along the edge where I'm going to put my holes and do the stitching, and you'll see later why I need this, but it is 6 by a little bit over that 11 and a half, just a little bit. I can always trim them later, but at least it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. And I have all of my pages for my book. So I have some loose canvas, and you can use absolutely anything you want. I geared my pages toward what I'm going to be doing in the summer sessions. So I wanted to make sure I had the right kind of paper for that, so I wasn't working in a whole bunch of books. I want to fill this book with everything that I'm doing this summer, and I don't want to have things spread out all over. So I have some loose canvas that's unprimed. I have some craft paper that you can get it in rolls. If you didn't see the supply video that I did, I'm just kind of doing a quick overview of that. So this was from a roll of craft paper. It's the kind that you wrap packages with, so you can get it at a Office Depot or whatever. That's probably your cheapest option. I have some mixed media paper, bunches of them. They're great for colored pencils and for wetter mediums, as long as you don't get too wet. I have some drawing paper in the color Oyster because I just love it. And I wanted to show you really quick why I love it so much. This is a picture that I had drawn, I don't know, last year, I think it was, last summer maybe, or possibly the summer before, I don't remember. But I did that on this oyster paper, and I just love how it looks. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's kind of got, it's in a plastic, so it might be a little bit shiny, but I love how it looks. You can also, if you want to print out some of your artwork, you can print it out on this paper. It goes through an inkjet printer really nicely. Or a, the other one that's more permanent, which the name is escaping me right now. And then I have some watercolor paper, some heavy-duty watercolor paper. So those are the things that I'm going to be putting in my journals. I have approximately 27 pieces. And then I also have some smaller, I had some leftover raw canvas, and I cut some smaller pieces because we're going to be doing thumbnail paintings as well. So I think that will fill up the other days if I don't have enough of my full-size papers. I also have an envelope. Now this is an envelope that I made and kind of messed up in the corner there, but I'm going to put it on the inside of the cover of my book to hold these other additional pieces, and possibly some watercolor pieces that are real small like that, and I'll put a button on it to keep it closed. So that's kind of a cool thing to use in your book. I use a punch board for that. So, short of getting, maybe I'll do a video tutorial at some point of creating an envelope with a punch board, but you have to have the punch board in order to do that. I think that you can print them out and just cut them, but I'm all about being easy. So I'm going to stick these aside, and we're going to cut apart our book. So what I have, let's see here. I think I want to, so I've taken out using a box cutter. I've taken out the inside pages, and I did that long ago. Otherwise, I would have shown you that. And I try to cut it right about where that harder, thicker cardboard is on the inside of the book. And I can trim this a little bit more, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. But in this particular book, there is a really thick cardboard piece right in that spine area. Okay, so I can actually pull it up here. Not all of them can be pulled up that easily. But what I want to do is cut right down the center of that little piece that's kind of holding it in. Otherwise, it's just going to tear like it did right here, wherever it wants to. This isn't a book. It's just made with paper. It's a paper covering, so it's not extremely sturdy like a fabric covering would be. So I want to get this cardboard piece out of here, and I would go about that carefully, because if it's really, really glued down, you might have a hard time getting it out, and you don't really want to cut through your binding at this point if you can avoid it. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but here, let's see. It's just, if you're going to use your box cutter, or a blade of some sort, an X-Acto knife, just be really careful about how you go about it, because you don't want to be cutting your binding in places where you shouldn't be. So you want to get as much off. Ouch. Okay, don't do that. You're going to cut yourself. Like, oh, I just cut myself. Look at that. All right. That's okay. It won't be the first. It isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my acrylic ruler, and I'm going to cut right down the center, make this a little bit easier. You would think I would know better, right? Like, I've been doing this a long time, and I've cut myself many times, and yet there we are. Okay. Okay, this might make it a little bit easier. And I don't have to get every bit of it off. I just want that paper along here to be as flat as I can get it. Okay. So if you're doing this along with me, I hope you're not having as hard of a time as I am. You can also wet the cardboard, and it might come off a little bit easier. Let's see if I can slide that under there. So always point your knife going away from you, not towards your fingers, for sure. Okay, another thing that you can do is, and I've done this before, and that's where if you get it a little bit wet, let's just wet it up a little bit here, that you can lightly scrape away that paper. It's probably what I should have done in the first place, but that's okay. So this is one of those things where it's not a perfect process. If you do this kind of thing over and over and over, you will find what works for you. And, you know, I don't do this particular binding all the time. I have done several of them, and I love how it looks. It's a relatively easy process, except for the cutting yourself part. And let's see, maybe I can get a brush with some water on it and get it right on that. There we go. So the point is to get it really flat because we're going to fold it over the edge of the book. So if you don't mind having edges that are open and you can see the cardboard, which on a lot of things I really don't mind. Like on Friday's tutorial, I have a book where you can, I didn't cover it that way, and you can see the cardboard. But I think it's kind of cool. I like that really rough look. But I wanted to show you this option just in case this is something that would appeal to you a little bit more. A little bit more off here, I think. Okay. Then the next thing that you want to do, and you'll have to do this to both pieces, but you want to get down to that cardboard that's inside. So I'm kind of folding back this inner paper. So this is the end paper, they call them. And I'm gonna turn that back so that it's right up to the cardboard. And I'm just gonna use some scissors to cut it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna be folding over that other edge anyway. And you just want to kind of cut away that bulk. So if you can leave it on, but it's gonna make your edges look bulky and uneven. Okay, so to get the most even look, you just want it to be kind of even with that cardboard underneath. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna do the other one. Because I'm doing this all on camera, you have to watch all of my little fussy things. And hey, that's just how that goes, right? But anyway, as I started to say, the whole point of doing this and showing you all of the mistakes that I make, the cuts that I incur along the way, and the things that I have to figure out while I'm going, you need to know that unless you're doing this every day, all day long, nothing is going to be perfect. And you need to let go of that notion that it needs to be. And I'm hoping that through this process, you're going to discover a way to be, to figure things out and to be able to find your way through your adventure. Because a lot of people get really frustrated when something doesn't go the way it went for whoever it is that they're watching do the tutorial. And guaranteed that person has practiced a million times in order to get it perfect. But I want you to understand that this process of creativity is not perfect. And even if you've done things bunches of times, you're still going to have to figure things out somewhere along the way. So I just need to, I think this one's a lot closer to that edge, which is really cool. So just need to trim this one up just a little bit. The reason why I don't do it, and this is from experience, the reason why I don't do it with the box cutter is because then you run the risk of cutting into that binding paper, which is the part that we want to fold over this raw edge. So cutting that isn't preferable. Now I have I have cut them and still used them. It's just a little bit fiddly because you have to make sure that if you don't want to see that cut, you have to make sure that it gets, you know, kind of folded together properly, and it just becomes a thing. You don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm not even going to I'm not even going to put wax paper down, but if you want to protect your surface, please do that. Now we have this part right here that folds, it's folded over the book before the end papers go on. So it's kind of makes like this little U shape here. I'm just going to trim that on an angle from where it stops up to where it begins. And all that's going to do is just kind of reduce the bulk, in it. So I might cut it a little bit more. And now I don't really want to cut that because I don't want to end up with, okay. So this is what I was talking about as far as maybe figuring things out along the way. Now, if you open up that little area that used to be a U, and you kind of push it in, you make a fold, so it's going this way, and you can cut off that part to reduce the bulk, but then when you fold it over, you get this nice little package edge, but you're not exposing, if you could cut it all like that, but then you're exposing that cardboard in the corner, which again, it's not a huge deal. It just depends on your preference, what you like things to look like. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now this is the one that had ripped, so yeah, it's not too bad. Okay. Now I'm using my neutral pH adhesive, but you can use, I want to make sure that gets under there. You can use Eileen's Tacky Glue. It's approximately the same consistency, and it'll hold it really well. It's just not pH neutral. So if this is just a book for yourself, probably not a big deal. Okay, and then I'm gonna move that around with a little bit with a brush, and I'm getting glue all over my cutting mat, but I have wipies. So that's why I'm not gonna worry about, it's just another process, cutting the wax paper and all of that. But if you're working on a surface that you're concerned about, definitely use wax paper underneath or something to protect your surface. So I like to fold it up and kind of push a little bit first, and then bring everything in. Okay, just like that. And just kind of pressing it down, make sure that there's no glue sticking out. It'll dry pretty quickly. I'm gonna set this one aside and go ahead and work on the second one before I clean up the mess that I made. And again, we're gonna fold this down. It makes like a little triangle. That's kind of cool. And then cut that off. So I have one here. Yep, I like that. I'm gonna have to remember that process. So this is how you discover what works for you. And I think it makes you stronger creatively when you can figure your way through a problem. Okay, it makes you resilient. Okay. Glue again. Now I like the tip on this for doing these small binding areas, but it's not so much great for doing larger areas, which we'll be coming to. Makes it a little bit harder, but I can't get my cap off. Apparently it has been glued together, so I guess that's just how that goes. Okay, and I'm making sure that I get that glue onto that cardboard that's in there, so that it has a really nice tight bond. It's not extremely important, but it will make everything look a lot neater. Okay, tipping it up, and push. It just kind of creates that crease before you press down your flap. So nice, nice, nice. All right, and I'm not going to worry about putting this underweight. I think that little edge, it's not going to be a big deal. So, but you can see it creates an edge just like all of the other edges. So I think it's really, really beautiful to do it that way. Okay, I'm just not going to, I'm going to set them aside to dry just a minute while we talk about how we're going to do the edge, the next step of it. But I'm not going to put them on top of each other, so that as this glue is drying, should only take a couple of minutes, but that they don't stick and pull the paper away. That might seem like a no-brainer to some of you, but to others, you know, that might be a huge revelation and might keep you from experience a little bit of creative trauma there. All right. And I'm going to put my glue brush into some water until I need it again. And while the books are drying, I am going to bring back my paper. Let's dry this up because I don't want to put my paper down on here on a wet surface. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of paper. So what I think I would like to do is, let's see. Okay. I don't have exactly the same amounts of everything. So I do have the most of the mixed media paper. So I don't want to just stack everything like its own kind. I want to vary the pages. So depending on how many you have of each thing, you know, it's not going to be one of this, one of that, one of that, one of that, one of that, and then repeat again, because eventually you're going to run out and then you'll have the same of the other ones. So I think what I'll do is start with two piles. And I think I'd like this craft paper to be on the outside. So I only have 2 more of these craft papers left. I'm going to leave those on the side. So this will be the top, this will be the bottom, and I'll just end up putting them on top of each other like that. So again, I had more of these, and these I tore on one edge. So I want to make sure that that edge is on the outer edge of the book. I love hand-torn papers, but it's not always the best thing to do. It's another process, and it just takes some time to do that. So I'm not going to do that today, but hand-torn papers are lovely. So I think I would like to put one of the raw canvas. And you can arrange your papers any way you like. It's not a big deal how they go in. There's no particular order that they need to be in. Let's see. Let's do one more of each of these. And then a watercolor paper. And I might get to the end and have some extras where I'll just have to slide them in somewhere. And let's put another one of these. Another one of the mixed media paper. Some more drawing paper. Watercolor. I have 2 more of the watercolor, and I have 3 more of the mixed media. So I think what we'll do is we'll put mixed media, we'll do the watercolor, and then I have this one that's going to separate them. Now, that might not be the best arrangement I've ever done, but for ease's sake, I think that's going to do it. So you can see, now I could use some, like if I had some more of this craft paper or the drawing paper, that oyster drawing paper, I would probably put that into here. But for now, I think it's sufficient. So I have all of my raw edges on the ones that I tore, and then these are all the cut edges. So the cut edges are going to go along the edge where everything will fold up. So the next thing I need to decide is how do I want my covers to go on? Which one do I want to be on the front? And I kind of really like all of these penguins. I think they're kind of cool because when you, like, so this would be the edge of the binding that we're going to sew with the, you know, bind together. And the fabric is going to go over each one of those covers. So don't cover up something that you want to keep. And I think that that will be totally fine, just like that. And I'm not sure whether this is going to be the front cover or the back cover. I thought it was going to be the front cover, but yeah, because I wasn't really all that crazy about these people on here. So I think this might be the back cover. 365. So this you could make a year journal that has 365 pages in it. That would be a lot of pages, and it would be a very thick book. I don't necessarily suggest that you do that. This is just for the summer. Okay, so I think we'll do that. I think this is going to be I'll do this one as the front cover. Keep it as it should be. Front cover, back cover. Okay, so we're ready to start working on our covers. I'm gonna set aside my pack of papers, and I'm gonna do the back cover first, I think. And I have this piece of fabric that I cut. Now this is like a kind of a garment weight linen. It's not real heavy. You can kind of see through it, some of the lighter areas. So you do need to be kind of aware of that if you're using a thinner piece of fabric, that you might have see-through. So be aware of that, and just choose something that you like and that kind of looks good with your cover. So I chose this one because of all of the black and white. Everything else that I had was either an off-white, which didn't look good with the white, or it had a lot of pattern, which this is already a really busy cover, so I didn't think that that would be a good idea. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to mark my, if I can, there we go. I'm going to mark halfway on my, just make sure you're still in there, yeah, on my fabric, so that, oh, that was a little bit crooked. So this is kind of the halfway mark. All right, and I'm gonna glue this part, but I want to put this, and I wish I could open it, and I just cannot. So I'm gonna have to put it in here. And I want to put it in a jar because I don't want to put lumps of the glue directly on this fabric, because it's such a thinner fabric. I don't want to have a lot of bleed through. So there will be some, because so you can make book fabric, book paper, or book cloth, I'm sorry. You can make book cloth by doing another process to it, but that would, you know, we're talking all day classes here to do everything that you can possibly do. So I just want to make sure that I get my fabric on. And there's lots of great tutorials out there on creating book fabric. It's part of my I have a class on my classroom platform on my Thinkific account that that teaches making your own book cloth as part of that course. All right, so I'm just kind of going lightly, so it's taking me a little bit more time than I usually like to do. So we don't have to cut the covers for the back one. That's why I'm starting with the back, because the front, we're going to have to cut a hinge into our cover. And I'm not going to have enough. All right, I think this is going to come out a lot faster. Whoa, there we go. That's what I want to see. All right. I will probably need to put this into a different container now, because I just cut the whole tip off. But it was beginning to frustrate me. It was getting plugged. Okay, so you do want to do this kind of quickly, because it'll start to dry on you. And I'm doing a really large book. If you're doing something smaller, it's probably going to be a much quicker process for you than what I'm doing here. Okay, so the back of the book, and I want to get that approximately in the middle. Oh, you know what? I think that, no, I'm gonna leave it. It's already on there. Okay, because I was thinking that I'd like to do this, and I'm gonna do it anyway, but it would have been better on the other side. So that's okay. I let go of perfection long time ago, and I've come to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. Okay. So this theoretically should go halfway, and it does, maybe with a little bit of extra. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this directly on the book, and I already have a guideline of where to go with that because you can see the fabric. All right. That's pretty good. And I do want to make sure that I get some extra glue in that crevice there. And maybe also in the part that of the fabric that's going to need to fold over. Okay. So this is why doing it the other way probably would have been a better idea. All right. But again, that's one of those things that you make the mistake and then you learn from it. Okay. And I'm going to make sure it's flat here on the binding edge before I start pulling it. And because this is such a thin and stretchy kind of a material, it's going to be a little imperfect. I don't have perfect edges. I'm not bothered by that. But if that's something that bothers you, you can use a really heavy paper for this if you want. Handmade paper is definitely an option. I was originally going to use that. I just thought it was a little bit busy, and I wanted something kind of plain with all of this. So the back one doesn't have to be done. You don't have to do it for this. Let's see. So this original book that I had done, I did not do that on the back because I wanted the painting to show as much as possible. You do this fabric part to keep that hinge together. So that's really its purpose. So it doesn't, since the back doesn't have a hinge, you don't have to do it, but I think that it looks more consistent, like it belongs together when you do it together and when you do them both the same. So, but if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. So I'm going to let that one dry, and we will work on the front. Now, the front, let's see, I have my fabric here. I'm going to need a box cutter for this and a ruler. I'm using an acrylic ruler because I like being able to see through to make sure that my measurements are accurate. So I want to cut my binding at about 1.5 inches. Okay, so I can line up my ruler so I can see the markings in here. That's why I love the acrylic rulers. And I've got it to 1.5 inches. Now you could just measure it out, make your marks, draw a line, and then cut along the line. That works too. and we're going to cut it completely apart. Now, don't struggle through this. Just take your knife and long strokes. You want to put some pressure, but you don't want to be forcing it through. It's not going to happen in one, and you're going to end up cutting yourself. How do I know this? Because I've done it. Okay, so you're cutting it completely apart. And what we're going to do then is and again, I have a halfway mark on my fabric. And because this is linen, I can just press it and get a halfway. It's the lovely part about linen. Just love it. All right, so we're going to glue the bottom part of it. Only about 1.5 inches in. So I will nope, I think I can go ahead and just glue the whole thing. So what we're going to do is you're going to put the glue on it. We'll put in that little piece that you just cut off, and then we'll put in the next one. Now, with that, you're going to need to leave a gap, and it needs to be a gap that is the same width as the cover book, the cardboard part. Okay, so if you put your book up against that, if you put the bigger piece up against the smaller piece, going straight up and down, and then you lay it down, that is the gap that you're going to need in order to open up your cover and not have it. You don't want this cover to hit anything when you're opening it up in order for it to open up completely. Okay? Okay. So maybe what we'll do is, I'm just going to use a different brush. Okay. I have a new brush here, lots of brushes. And we'll probably use a fair amount of glue. And I'm just going to glue this there we go. Get more glue. Just going to glue this board. So that'll minimize that going through the fabric part that I really dislike. All right. And just pop it in there. Let's leave a little on both sides. Probably should have drawn a line. It would have been a lot straighter, but again, I don't really mind. This is my personal journal. It's not something that I'm selling. And I'm just putting a little bit on my brush so that I can keep the glue going through my fabric to a minimum. Book cloth is a much better thing. It's kind of pricey, so making your own is a really nice option. Okay, and I'll try to remember to put the link to that class if you think that you would like to learn some of those other techniques. Okay, and again, I'm going to put my book up, making sure all the edges are even, and just lay it down. Okay. So I have again done it backwards from how I should probably be doing it, but that's okay. All right. Now I am making sure that I get some glue into that crevice, and the only thing that that's going to do is to make sure that that when you open up your book, that that fabric is going to stay attached to the to the cardboard, sorry. All right, got some chunks of glue there. All right, I'm just gonna fold it over, bring it up as tightly as I can. This one's a little bit fiddly, and I think I'm just gonna trim this stuff at the top and bottom, unlike what we did on the other half, but that's okay. Again, it's one of those processes. It's an adventure. It's a creative adventure. You're just figuring it out as you go. Once you know the rules or how to do it, you can adjust it to whatever works for you. Okay, so I got a lot of glue that came through there, but that's okay. It'll dry clear. It'll be fine. All right, get some. Okay, so I have a freewheeling cover here. All right, make sure the back is kind of pressed in. And this is all going to get covered, this here, so totally don't worry about that. We could even put a piece of lace or ribbon or something along this edge if you don't like that unfinished look. And then I'm going to clean up my surface a little bit. Lots of glue, lots of glue. And we are, honestly, we are not all that far from done. Now I will need some wax paper or something for this particular part. And I don't have any handy, so I'm just going to use this canvas piece that's sitting here. Oh no, I can't use that. Never mind. We're just going to do this quick so that it doesn't get stuck forever. Let's do this first. Okay, so we want, I really like the width of this, the holes here, which are, they are 1.5 inches apart, except for the end ones are only 1 inch. So in addition to this size, there is another 3 inches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think we'll do 6, 7, 8. We're gonna do 8 Actually, we're going to do 7. So you need to have an odd number of holes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll do 7. You could do 9 if you wanted to, but I think we'll just do 7. I don't want to go any closer together than that. So I've got a marking pencil. Hold on just a second there. All right. So I have a Stabilo pencil here, which is a water-soluble pencil, but it marks on, it's called a Stabilo all pencil, so it marks on literally everything, even glass. So I can use, since I'm on a cutting mat here, I can use my cutting mat to measure. So you want to measure not from the edges of your fabric. If it hangs over, you want to measure from the edge of your book. And I'm going to go right in the middle of this distance. So that makes it about 3/4 of an inch in. So I want 1 inch from one end, 1 inch from the other end. And then we'll go 1.5 inches up from each of those. So if you're using a ruler to make these marks, I'm just using my cutting mat, but you can use a ruler. And I never measure all the way down like this because you don't always get an accurate measurement that way. So there we go. Okay, so we have one there, we have one here, we have one at 1 inch, and then 1.5 inches from there. So that's another half, another 1, another half, another 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're gonna go right in the half, right in the middle, which is another 1.5 inches from these two. So that just happened to work out. Usually when I get to 6 or the even number and I want it to be odd, I'll split the difference. Even if it's larger or smaller, it doesn't really matter. That's how I do it. Okay, then the next thing that you want to do is to put holes. Now I'm using a crocodile. You can use, I know I have one here somewhere. You can use a book awl if you'd like to make your holes, but they're just going to be smaller holes. So I like the fact that this cuts the holes. I can see where it's going to cut, and it actually takes out a plug. So, and it goes mostly through fabric too. So it creates a really, really nice hole. And for this particular binding, that's a nice thing to have, a hole, especially if you're using, if you're not binding with thread and you're using yarn or ribbon or, you know, sari, silk sari or something like that. Whatever it is that you want to use. Okay, so instead of measuring again for your bottom book cover, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my book covers together, making sure that the edges along the binding edge are even. Okay, your foredge is going to be a little bit longer because of this gap. You know, we could have taken off another piece before we did it so that they would match up, but I kind of like having that edge that you can lift. It's kind of nice. So I've done it both ways, and I prefer just to leave it. Okay, so once you have that all even, you can just take your pencil or your book awl, and actually I might use the book awl to go through. I don't think my pencil will, it's not sharp, so I don't think it'll go through. And I'm just going to create an indent in that book cover below. If you have a really sharp pencil, that will probably work just fine. Oh, and it's starting to get kind of steamy in here. It's supposed to be 90 today, so hope you guys have lots of great plans for the holiday. Okay, so I have all of the indents, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to see them. Let's see. There's one, and I'm just going to push these through. I will cut them too, but because this is a black fabric and my glasses are steaming up, I'm having a hard time seeing the holes. So I'm just gonna, this one there. There. Okay, I might have missed this one. All right, so I need to reline that back up and do that second hole. Oh, it is a little bit higher. Look at that. I did get it right, so that's okay. It's not exactly on the line with the rest of them. You can put a line there if you like, but you want them to meet up with the other ones. That's more important than them being straight. So, all right. Make sure I know what I'm looking at here. And it's actually much harder to punch through too, even with the crocodiles. So I don't necessarily suggest that you try to do that. And if they're off a little bit, it's not going to make a big difference, but you want them to be as close as possible. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the last one. 7. Okay, so I have my holes in the front, I have my holes in the back. I'm gonna go ahead and trim this off before I start binding. We will need to put holes in our papers as well, but we're going to clip those and do that all together. Okay, so see, really nice. Okay. All right. So it's more important that this end, the end that's going to go at the binding edge, is straight. And I'm going to clip the whole packet together. These binder clips are awesome. Love them. Okay, so you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clip the whole thing together, because this will create a little bit of, and that's kind of a stretch, but it's going to, if I leave the clips inside, it might not meet up. My holes might not be as they should. So, okay. I'm gonna use a, let's see, what do I have that's pointy here? Okay, I got a pencil here. And I'm just going to use the pointy pencil to get, and only that top paper is going to get marked, but we're going to clip them together and cut them all at the same time. I hope. It might not fit inside the crocodile, so I might have to do it in 2 different pieces. I think that has happened before. See, there are all my marks. There's my wonky one that didn't turn out right. It's totally fine. So again, I'm gonna make sure that they're all matching up. Use my clips. And then I can just cut these, hopefully, all at the same time. Nope. Okay. So I'm going to take it in half and just set the other half side. It can be a process, you guys, but I assure you that it is totally worth it. And you might just decide that you want to use a book awl and do the pages like 2 or 3 at a time. I thought this would make it faster, so this doesn't end up being a really, really long video for you guys. I know you've got way better things to do than to spend all your time with me. Not that I don't love spending time with you guys. Okay. Now I'm just going to leave that last one, and I'll put that right up on top of this other one, this other stack, the second stack that I need to cut. Clip it again. I think this is actually a little bit thinner of a stack. once you have all of the holes in your covers and your paper, the only thing that's left to do is bind it. So this is by far one of the quickest books that I've ever done. Well, maybe second quickest. I do a pamphlet stitch book for my regular 1-month journals that that takes about, I don't know, 5 minutes. It's not difficult at all. Get all those pieces off. Okay, so this was the bottom. I can put that aside. There's my needle. And this goes right on top. So, okay. As far as needles go, I'm just using an embroidery or a tapestry needle. And I did talk about this the other day. It is, go. It doesn't have a real pointy, which is good because I also poke myself all the time. I cut myself and I poke myself. It's not real, I mean, it's pointy enough to go through something, but it's dull so you don't hurt yourself. And it has a really wide eye on it, which allows you to be able to, get, you know, a ribbon or something thicker if you want to do something thicker in your binding. So let's see. All right. So I've got, and you can use anything. I am just going to keep that first hole like that, and it's going to keep it even while I clip my book together. It's going to make it a lot easier if you clip your book. And other side, just like that. So, and if you want, you can check all of your holes to make sure they're all lining up. I think we're totally good on this. Sort of. If not, this would be a good time to make sure that your, there it is. I think it is just a little, shift a little bit down. All right. You can adjust it. There we go. Okay, so all of my holes are open. I'm going to cut off some of these things here. Okay, and the next thing I need, to decide is what color I wanted to use. I wasn't really sure. There's a little bit of blue in here. There's absolutely no pink, but I really like how that stands out against that, especially against this binding color. So I'm thinking that that might be what I want to use, is this one. So this is a chiffon ribbon. This is silk. But I think I really like this color. So I'm going to use that. All right. And there's knots here and there. Not worrying about those. That's kind of the process of making your own ribbon. As you tear it in strips, you have to attach it somehow to each other. So, and I'm not a big sewer. I don't like to sew stuff like that. So I'm going to take 5 lengths plus an inch or 2 on each side. I can always tie more onto it if I really need to, but I don't like to have to do that. So I always pick a generous amount. So that's 3, 4, and 5. Okay. And what did I do with my needle? So you can see, you can thread tapestry needles really, really easily. Now it's not going to go past this knot, but I don't really need it to. It can stay just like that. So we're going to start in that first hole, and we're going to go in from the front, out to the back. And this is why you want big holes, or why I want big holes, because I've got all these knots that need to go through. And I want to leave about, maybe about 4 or 5 inches of a tail here, okay? And I may go ahead and clip that on so that it doesn't move while I'm trying to show you guys what I'm doing here, because that will get tied, but not until the end. So this is going to go, and you're going to pull it really snug. It's going to go around the end of, oh no, wait a minute. It goes around the top. So when we go back around, that'll go through the end and it gets tied. So it goes up around from the back. So if you can see, it's coming through the back of the book, going around the top. And back into that first hole. Okay. Again, that's a big hole. It's tight, so you're really going to need to pull. If you're using ribbon like I am. If you don't have ribbon like that, probably not going to be a big deal. Okay, then you're going to go into the next hole in the back. Just go straight across. Bring it back up through the front. And after you do the first couple of holes, you'll see it's not that big of a deal. And you're going to go around and back through that same hole. So the tighter you pull it, the more it's going to open up that hole, and you'll have an easier time pulling things. And if it gets really bound up, you might want to check underneath and make sure that you don't have all of your ribbon trying to force itself through all at the same time, which is always fun. Okay, move a couple things here. I'm going to end up spilling something. There we go. Okay, so then you're going to go here. Now I know there's nothing here, but we'll fix that on the way back. And you're going to go down through that next hole. So basically you're creating the bridge to the next hole, pulling it all through. Don't know what that is. And then you're going to come, this one might be a little tough because there's a knot right in that hole. And you're going to come back around and go through that hole again. Okay. Then again, we're going to go through that next hole. This one might be a little, I don't remember which one it was that I had to ream out, but, oh, it wasn't this one. I think it was the last one. Maybe that's why I had such a hard time. Okay. And make sure, especially if you're using something that has knots, make sure you're getting all the way through and it's not getting stuck, because you don't want to have to go back. Okay, and go all the way around. Pull it tight. Go in through that hole again. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna grab some pliers. Sorry, be right back. Quite sure where my jewelry pliers are, but I think this will work. There we go. Ah, much easier. So if you guys have tools, use the tools. Lovely. Okay. And then in through the next one. Maybe this was the one that I had to ream out. Bet you it is. So I probably should have recut that hole, because now it's just a struggle to get it through, but that's okay. So I'm coming around, going back into that hole again. I'm thinking I'm definitely going to need this, the pliers for this one, because I don't want to break my needle or my fingers. Okay. Sadly, after all of this, we're going to have to go back through these holes another time. So that's, hope you guys are strong. If you're not, this is going to make you strong. But you don't have to worry about ripping anything. I mean, you know, because everything is enclosed all at once here. And actually the larger holes are really working out very nicely. I always, for this binding, I always cut my holes with that crocodile or any kind of a hole punch that you have. If it's not a real heavy duty hole punch, you might have to do them a little bit individually. It might take you a little bit longer because you'll have to, you know, mark all of your pages of where you want to cut them, but it will make this particular part a whole lot easier. And my ribbon keeps, because it's frayed on the edges, it keeps getting stuck on the glue on my fingers. And I've been gardening, so I have a lot of other things, rough areas. Anyway, okay, and up and around. So this is the last hole here. Okay. And then what we're going to do then is to go back, go around this edge on the side of the book, right there. And then go back in that hole one more time. So we're not going to do the loops around anymore. We're just going to weave in and out in all of the areas that have not yet been bridged. Okay. And see, this one got a little, see, stuck. So not using something with knots is going to make the job a lot easier. So don't let this deter you. I tend to make things harder on myself. Now, the other thing that you kind of want to watch for, especially in this portion, is that you're not putting the needle through some of the other ribbon or whatever it is that you're using. You don't want to have to try to pull your ribbon through. All right, I think we got stuck. Oh, there we go. You don't want to have to try to pull your ribbon through through a cut in another ribbon, because it'll just make it difficult. So I think because of a knot here, I got a little thing. Oh no, see, it was just a little. It got stuck again there. And it's okay, depending on the strength of your ribbon, to really wrap it around your nails or wrap it around your fingers and really pull. I think it's totally okay to do that. Okay, let's see if I can try to get that out of the way. There. Okay. I love how it looks, but it is kind of a bear to get this frayed ribbon through the holes as many times as we need to do it, especially with the knots. Okay. That actually was through the ribbon, and that's okay. And I do have to rethread my needle because I pulled it right out. Okay, almost done. And I think, oh, it's stuck right here. Yep, I have plenty of ribbon, way more than was necessary, I believe, but that's okay. Better that than to have to deal with adding more to it. Of course, there's already knots in this, so it's probably not a real big deal for me, but you might not want that. Okay, so that was the last hole. Then all we have to do is bring it in front and let's see, tie it in a knot. And I want to try to, let's see, I want my knot to be as close to that first hole as possible. So I'm just sliding it right underneath that first one that goes over the top, and then I can just tie a knot. You can add charms if you want to, or whatever else you like. Okay. Take our clips off. And there we have our book. So exciting. All right. I may put something along this edge. Haven't decided yet. Yeah. Awesome. And this is what it looks like inside. Now, what I'm gonna do, what I'll probably do is I will keep a binder clip with me to hold the pages back. I'm not going to score my pages except for possibly the watercolor pages because they're so heavy. Everything else I think will fold back very nicely. I have a scoring tool here, and I'm just going to score it right along that edge so that when I bring it up this way, it isn't all bowed out or, and I'll show you on the next piece. Let's see. That one's good. This one's good. That one's good. Here's another watercolor piece. So if I don't score it, it's really hard to get it to go over, and it creates this big bow, and it keeps you from like accessing this area of this next piece of paper, which is okay. But if you score it, and this is not, it's not sharp, it's a scoring tool, it's like a little nub on the end of this, it'll fold over very nicely. So I'll go through and I'll do all of my watercolor, all of my watercolor paper pieces. And maybe I might do something to the cover, maybe do some, summer series 2022. I don't know. I may decorate my cover in some way. It is paper, so I could totally collage on it. If I want to paint on it, I'll need to use some sort of a gesso. Whether it's a clear gesso, black gesso, whatever you want. If you want to use like wetter mediums on it, otherwise they'll just absorb into it. But this is our book, and I think it's really, really cool. I may hang something on here, haven't decided. I could even add some other trinkets to it. I could add some strings that I could tie pine cones to maybe as I find them, or branches or rocks, or I'm not sure, all kinds of things you could do. So I'm gonna turn this up here, see if you guys have any questions. Hi, you guys. Phew, it's warm in here. I'm really warm. So, hi Mo. So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed that book. It's not as hard as I made it look. It's one of those things when you're trying to work through a project and you're trying to figure out a solution to a problem that you may be having. It's hard to talk to somebody, fill the space, work on the book, stay all in that, under that camera. It makes it a little harder for me to do when I'm on my own and I'm just kind of thinking through the process. It's far easier. So I love the shreddy thread. I think it's really cool. I probably, in retrospect, I probably should have put a line across, even a really faint line where I could line up my holes. So that probably would have helped with that not being able to get the my needle through that one particular hole. So learn from my mistake there. And this is something that I know. I just, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't do it, but anyway, there it is. So this is my process for making my own journals. I'm really excited to fill this summer. We are actually, I've already pre-filmed, because I'm going over to my father-in-law's today, and I'll be staying for probably the majority of the week. I will pop in and out, but I've pre-filmed creating another little book, and this is from a vintage book cover with a lot of, well, there's some scrapbook paper in here, but a lot of the pieces that were left over after trimming everything to put into the Japanese Side-Sewn Binding book. So again, here is our book. Oh, I didn't mention the front, what I'm going to do in the front here. So now what you can do is you can take that first page and just glue it down. And I think that's okay to do. But when you do that, you're going to get some crinkling. If you do that, you'll get some crinkling when you close your book, because you want it to be able to open up all the way. And typically on most books, that's what I would do, is I would glue that down. But you would want to glue it down open all the way, and there's still a gap here. So most likely what I will do is I will choose a piece of paper, possibly an old piece of artwork or painty paper. So like I put a lot of this brown craft paper, I'll put it down when I'm painting or when I'm doing my jelly printing, because I roll off my roller on it. And then I use that painty paper to in collage and stuff like that. So you could use a piece of that in here, and I would probably, since it doesn't really need to bridge it for strength, I would probably I would leave about maybe 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch from that binding edge, and I would measure there and just cut a piece that would fit right in there and then glue it down. A really cool book, really cool book. Can't wait to work in it. I hope you guys are going to join me this year or this summer. And I do see that I have a piece of paper that's kind of sticking out. It probably shifted somewhere in there. And so I'll probably trim it, and that's okay. And everything, that particular piece is going to be uneven, but I'm letting go of that need for perfection because it doesn't have to be. So on Friday, you will have a video here in the group. The video will already be in there. I'll put it up Friday morning. It'll go live about maybe 9 o'clock, something like that. But it's pre-recorded. This is the book that I made. Really cool little binding here. So, and I get to speed up through some of those pieces that are kind of hard to sit there and watch somebody struggle through something. So I will kind of go a little bit faster at that particular time. So it'll be a little bit shorter of a process video for you. So, but you get the idea. The important stuff, I'll make sure that you can see it and hear it and all of that kind of thing. The other thing that, and I haven't actually done it yet, I'm going to do it right after I get done here, is the binding for that book, for this one here that I was just showing you. I'm going to make a little bookmark out of it to use in my book because I think it's really cool. So this is going to be my go journal for the summer. I'm just going to throw it into my bag along with a clip and a bookmark, and just take it with me everywhere I go. The bigger books, they're kind of a little harder. You have to be really intentional with that. This will fit right into my purse, along with a little zipper bag of supplies, you know, just some quick essential supplies. And on Wednesday, I will have a little video for you guys on creating a go bag and getting some of your papers pre-created, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So putting gessos on your raw canvas for various things, or doing some of that to some of the other papers to make them able to accept paint and things, you know, of that nature. So I'm going to put together a quick little video for Wednesday on that go bag and backgrounds. And then on Friday, you'll have this video. And then next Monday, we start our summer series, and we're just going to start with some really easy techniques for drawing flowers in your garden or things out in nature. So this is all about making things easy and accessible for you. It's not about becoming a professional anything. This is just about being creative, about engaging in that creative process and letting it change you, because creativity transforms. It really does. It transforms people. It transforms their minds and their hearts. It is known to bring your blood pressure down, as long as you're letting go of that perfection, that is, and all kinds of great benefits to being creative. So join me this summer for the summer series. Check out the video on Wednesday and Friday, and I will see you here next Monday at 9.